Good morning, everyone. This is your consumer math recording for today. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, 2015, and as a reminder, I'm out at PSSAs all this week. That's why you guys are all working asynchronously. Our goals for this mini lesson are to learn how to calculate something called simple interest, and also how to determine how much total money you have in your savings account after a certain number of years. Okay, so this, in the example that I have on the board, I said after 10 years. So how much money do I have in my account after 10 years after all of this simple interest has been added on? Okay, so a quick look at our week. On Monday, you guys watched a mini lesson for the first half of Unit 7. If you didn't watch that yet, take a look at your course announcements or your K-mail for the link to that recording. Today we're doing the second mini lesson for 7.02, and your homework for today is 7.02b homework. Tomorrow I'm going to give you some way to study for your Unit 7 test. Your Unit 7 study guide will be due at that time. Remember, that is optional extra credit. Thursday, no, of course, no live session and also no recording. You're going to use your time to take your Unit 7 exam. The Unit 7 exam is considerably shorter than any of our other exams, so please take the time to take that on Thursday. Friday is a little bit up in the air. We don't know if we're going to have a live session or if you're going to have a recording, and that's because I don't know if I'm going to be at PSSAs or not. Probably won't know until Thursday night, so you're going to want to look at your K-mail on Thursday night or first thing Friday morning to know if we're having a live session or not. As of right now, I have that live session on your Class Connect, so I want you to assume that we're having a live session until I tell you that we're not, okay? And we'll be starting Unit 8 at that time. All right, so simple interest. One way of earning interest in a savings account is with something called simple interest, okay? The other type of interest is called compound interest. We're not going to learn about that in this course, but if you ever hear that term, compound interest, it's similar to simple interest. It's actually quite more difficult and complicated to figure out, though. Okay, simple interest pays you a rate on the amount of money that you deposit into your checking or into your savings account. And with this section, we're talking about savings accounts. It's most common to earn interest on a savings account. Here's your formula for simple interest, or we might just be calling it interest. When you see it in your word problems, it's not going to necessarily say simple interest. They might just say interest. Interest is equal to principal times rate times time. So the formula here is actually, this is one of my favorite formulas because you can multiply these together in any order, and it's all multiplication. So the only thing to remember is that you're multiplying. Well, what are these things? What is principal, what is rate, and what is time? Your principal is the money that you started with, and I have a little dollar sign here to remind you that you're basically looking for a dollar amount in the word problem. Your rate is your interest rate. I put a percent symbol here. You're looking for a percent symbol or maybe the word percent. And remember, with any percent, you need to convert that to a decimal before you use it in your formula. And then finally, time. And time is the number of years that you're holding the money in the savings account. Okay, so let's do a couple of problems. Here's your formula up at the top, simple interest, and I've shortened the formula. It equals P times R times T. That's principal times rate times time. Here's your problem. You opened a savings account that pays 2% interest annually. If your initial deposit is $1,000, how much interest will you earn in 5 years? Okay, so we're wondering how much interest the bank is going to pay you for keeping your $1,000 in the bank for 5 years. You want to multiply principal times rate times time. Take a minute and write down on your paper what you think the principal, the rate, and the time are. Pause the recording right now while you figure that out, and then in a moment, unpause and see if you're right. Okay, so hopefully you had 1,000 for your principal, 0.02 for your rate. That comes from the 2%. 2% becomes 0.02. And hopefully you had 5 for your time because it's 5 years. All right, so now you want to multiply these numbers together. Pause the recording right now, multiply them, and see what you get. Okay, you should have gotten $100 as your answer. So you would have earned $100 in interest just by leaving your $1,000 in the bank for 5 years. Okay, this next one is a similar problem to the one that we just did, and this is the Unit 7 Study Guide problem number 10. You opened a savings account that pays 2.5% interest annually. If your initial deposit is $1,500, how much interest will you earn in 4 years? So for this one, what I want you to do in a moment is to pause the recording and try the whole thing on your own. Figure out what the principal is. Figure out what the rate is. Figure out what the time is. Write them down on your paper, multiply them out, and then play the recording again. Okay, pause your recording now. Okay, you should have 1,500 times 0.025 times 4. 1,500 is the money you started with. 0.025 is your 2.5% interest, and 4 is the number of years. Multiply those together and you should have $150. Okay, the next problem that we're going to do is a little bit different. It starts off the same way, but we have a second step in this problem. Let me read the problem to you. You opened a savings account with $5,000 at 3% interest, and you keep your money in your account for 7 years. Okay, so far, this problem sounds just like the problem that we did a moment ago. Here's the difference. Let's look at this last phrase. What is the total amount in the account after the 7 years? That's the difference. They don't want to know what the interest is. They want to know how much total money do you have. So here are the two steps. Step 1, you're going to calculate interest just like you did with the other problems. Step 2, you're going to take that interest and add it back to the principal. Add it back to the money you started with. Okay, so in a moment, I'd like you to find your principal, rate, and time from this formula, write them down on your scratch paper, and multiply them together. Okay, so pause the recording now and work on step 1 on your own. Okay, so for step 1, you should have found your principal to be $5,000. Your rate should be 0.03. You have 3% interest, and your time is 7 years. Multiply that out and you get $1,050. Step 2, you want to take your interest and add it back to the principal. Your interest was your answer from step 1. Okay, so your interest is that $1,050. Your principal is the $5,000 that you started with. Add them together and you should get $6,050. Let's go to our last problem. Last problem, this is number 11 on the Unit 7 study guide. I'd like for you guys, I'll read the problem and then I want you to try the whole thing on your own. So when I say to pause the recording, work it out on your own, unpause it, and check to see if you were right. All right? So this one says you opened a savings account with $2,000 at 3.1% annual interest. If you keep the money in the account for 5 years, what is the total amount in the account? All right? Remember, you're going to find your interest, and then you're going to use that answer to find your total money. Pause the recording now. Okay, I'm going to reveal. So hopefully for interest, you were multiplying your principal of $2,000. Your rate, 3.1%, is really 0.031. And your time was 5 years. You multiplied those out and you got $310. And then your second step, you found your total money. You took your interest from the first step, $310, added it to the money that you started with, your principal, which was $2,000, and you should have as your answer $2,310. Again, this is from the study guide number 11. So this concludes our mini lesson for Tuesday. You learned how to calculate interest, and then you learned how to find the total amount of money in your account. And for that, you're really just adding on an extra step. First, you find the interest, and then you add it back onto your principal. So what I'd like for you to do today, or sometime before tomorrow, is to complete 7.02b homework. Please check your K-Mail every morning for the day's assignment. I hope you guys are having a great week, and I'll see you soon.